Okay. For my Black Mirror episode pitch, I decided to work on an idea surrounding climate change and inequality, I suppose. And I'll sort of just lay it out in the same style as written treatment. Starting with the premise, moving to like more of an outline, a little character breakdown, and then um, talk a bit about how it relates to Black Mirror, and how it contributes to the show's overall themes. So, the storyline revolves around a future where climate change has accelerated massively and access to habitable land has become quite scarce. In dealing with this, the wealthy elite have resorted to private disaster relief services to protect their estates, their mansions, their properties. The story will follow Lauren Palmer, a wealthy business owner who is battling to keep her mansion functional amid the climate change concerns. Um, when I say climate change, this would be really dystopian, right? So, like, it would probably focus on forest fires just since that's so, uh, I suppose, easy to kind of imagine. But yeah, Lauren Palmer, our main character, is essentially trying to deal with this, and in doing so, she hires private disaster relief services, specifically a fire crew. Um, and this whole idea kind of is digging at socioeconomic inequality, obviously environmental degradation, the implications of utilizing privilege to shield kind of yourself from the repercussions of a failing planet. And yeah, I guess privilege and putting personal interest over societal well-being. So I'll kind of just go through the outline, the story itself. We would start by establishing our world where climate change has led to really severe natural disasters, scarcity of land, and a growing divide between the rich and struggling masses. We would introduce Lauren Palmer and her life in her mansion, and obviously show the use of the private disaster relief services protecting properties. So, specifically, firefighters protecting Lauren's property. Um, I think in the opening scenes, it would also be good to kind of depict the public unrest and protest against the privileged who are monopolizing resources that should be for everybody. Um, and then we would kind of show an escalation in the disasters, the wildfires, and Lauren's property, her mansion being more at risk, and her needing to employ more relief services. Uh, this kind of area in the episode would also highlight the technologies that the relief services are using, and introduce some of the characters that would be involved in protecting her house. And I think the first kind of these first two acts, I guess, would focus on just Lauren really, and like how her property is so cut off from the world that everything outside is horrible, right? And they're protecting her property. Um, then I guess what would be Act Three would be showing the poor communities and how they're not getting any help because all of these relief services have been privatized and are making a lot more money helping the rich. In this kind of point, Lauren would confront what's going on and the ethical implications as she's starting to like witness the suffering of the neighboring communities. And during this time, it would also kind of show the shrinking of her property. Um, this would be probably public outcry, right? Would be intensifying, and some of the consequences of Lauren's actions and the wealthy's actions would become more apparent. Um, Next would probably be more of a breaking point, which I haven't quite nailed down. But this breaking point would lead to Lauren really grappling with her role in the crisis and the interconnectedness of all of the lives and kind of what's going on in the world. Uh, and that would kind of lead to the end where I think Lauren would she would be like, okay, I'm ready to change, I'm ready to help, like this was horrible. But at this point she hasn't even left this like secluded dystopian everything's perfect mansion of hers, and when she's ready to help and does leave, she realizes it's just way too late and there's nothing even out there in the world for her to help with. So yeah, that's kind of the main outline of the story. I guess I should also mention, like, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but in terms of like cinematography, I guess there's a real emphasis on like her property is so big and so secluded, but there's like a fine line between her gorgeously cut green grass and then past the walls of her estate, right, is just like firefighters fighting these crazy fires, and she's oblivious to all of this. And there's also just an emphasis, I guess, like politically, with just land shrinking, right, and the implications of that. Like her land is slowly shrinking, and they have to just keep trying to preserve this perfection for the wealthy, like all in these houses, right, which is making it even harder for the poor, and employing more privatized people, right, to be doing this, to be upkeeping the wealthy's properties. And kind of that cycle. I hope that makes sense. Uh, yeah, to go through the characters, so Lauren Palmer would be our antagonist. I guess is sort of a protagonist in that she wants to help at the end of the episode, but I think her just not even realizing it and it being too late, which would kind of be our twist, is makes her an antagonist. But yeah, I'll just go kind of from what I had originally thought with everything written out. So Lauren Palmer is a wealthy entrepreneur living in opulence on a large estate. Her main motivation in the episode rests on her desire to preserve her privileged lifestyle and protect her estate from natural disasters. At points in the episode, she grapples with the moral implications of using private services while witnessing the others suffer on behalf of this. She evolves from a detached, self-centered individual to someone who questions the societal impact of her choices, but ultimately this evolution comes far too late for it to have any positive implications. There'd be Felix. He would be the head of the private firefighting service that's employed at Lauren's properties. His main purpose is to ensure the safety and security of the wealthy elite, and we later in the episode would learn how much he is profiting off the services to only represent the elite, and how he kind of wrestles with, should I be helping the poor, but ultimately just the money's too good for him. And he serves as a symbol kind of the systemic issues perpetrated by the wealthy elite. Next, we have Paul, who would be an underpaid firefighter who works for Felix at the estate of Lauren. He is kind of the leader in advocating for the rights of the poor, being that he sees both sides of it. And throughout the episode, he brings attention to unequal distribution of resources, and he sort of challenged the elite's control and is sort of the symbol that makes Lauren evolve into, I suppose, a more caring character. There's Sarah. This one I'm not huge on, but I think there would be some character that's like an environmental studies professional who is kind of the voice of reason and advocates for sustainable practices, collective responsibility. And she would be facing opposition from the wealthy, right? Those who prioritize their individual gains over long-term environmental well-being. And she would provide, I guess, like a scientific perspective throughout the episode to make it more realistic. Yeah, I guess last would kind of be this episode's contribution to Black Mirror, and its themes, which initially are just addressing real world issues, right? Climate change, social inequality, the consequences of unchecked privilege. I think really focusing on the current global climate crisis mirrors contemporary concerns, which is something obviously really important to Black Mirror. I think the societal impact of of the world divided between privileged elite and disenfranchised provides a good commentary on hoarding resources in the face of environmental collapse. Obviously, the episode will lean into a dystopian future with climate related disasters and, uh, yeah, the potential ramifications of said disasters, right? What that would look like in 10, 20, 30 years. Um, I think there needs to be a little bit more exploration of technology, which would probably come in the form of like the technology that the private relief companies are using, the private disaster relief companies are using. Some sort of technology that, is only being used to help those who are paying for it, right? Rather than it being used as a really positive tool. Um, yeah, I think I wrote a little bit about um, research and kind of needing to have a good understanding of climate change and environmental science to really grasp the potential consequences. I think there is existing cases of privatization of firefighting and disaster relief services, maybe to research those a little bit and understand their impact on communities and their process, I guess, too, would just be smart. And then obviously the socioeconomic consequences of climate change, and maybe the legal and political responses to all of this, like how would it work legally? I think more importantly, how would it work politically? But yeah, that's it. So thank you.